Hello everybody. I have a deck walkthrough I want to do. This isn't a new deck, but it's a deck I had never heard of before, and it was a bit of an impulse buy, and I'm really glad I got it. So I think this might interest some folks out there based on conversations from live chats and listening to other folks' videos. So I wanted to share this. This is called Tarot of the Four Elements. The artist is Amy Erickson, and the writer of the book is Aisha Lerner, who is the writer behind the Inner Child cards. And this is a deck I've talked about before that I really like. You know, I mean, this is still around. It comes with this great, you know, my copy is really old, but it comes with this great hardcover book, and then the cards. And the reason I don't use the cards much is because they're so large. They're sort of bigger than Oracle-size cards. But thinking that this would be similar, I still said, well, just based on the couple images I saw, I was so kind of in love with it, that I said, well, you know, maybe I should get it, and I did. And actually, the cards are not super large. So it's from Little Bear and Company Publishing. Interestingly, the book inside does not give a description of or a bio of the artist and the writer, weirdly, so I'm just gonna sort of, it is on the back. So Aisha Lerner is a professional astrologer and tarot consultant and author of the best-selling Inner Child cards, and two other book deck sets, The Power of Flower and the Triple Goddess Tarot, as well as the Inner Child Cards workbook. And then Amy Erickson is an artist and a member of the Petaluma Art Council, whose illustration credits include several books, magazines, greeting cards, and posters. Yeah. So it comes in this really sturdy, really sort of giant box, and it's like a pull-out situation. And then there's the book, which I'm going to talk about, which I don't usually. It's rare that, because so many of the decks I've been buying lately are deck and book sets, I don't frequently mention, I'm sorry, because so many of the decks I've been buying lately are indie decks, a lot of them don't come with books. So it's actually been interesting to sort of see the book. So I'm going to talk about the book first. For those of you that care about this sort of thing, one thing that's nice about the book is that she actually does talk in the book about the artist's work and the choices, and I'll read actually a couple of the descriptions so you can get a sense of it as I do the walkthrough. Another thing that I like about this book a lot, I haven't read the whole thing, but I have read chunks of it, and you know, it's a well-researched book. I think there could be more, you know, I think there could be more documentation, but it's called The Four Elements Tarot, so she goes sort of through the history of the four elements. And then there's the section on sort of tribal art and symbolism, because one of the themes of this deck is tribal art, shamanic art, you know, not just from one period or one sort of race, but across many, which I like. One of the things that's kept me from, for example, the Wildwood Tarot is a deck whose artwork I really, really love, like the artwork, but it hasn't really called to me as a reader because I don't have that sort of Celtic shamanic history, you know, that background. That's not sort of part of my experience, and you know, it could be if I went that road. I just haven't. But one of the things I like about this is that there's that Celtic tribal shamanic art, there's Buddhist references, there's Christian references, so it's pretty diverse in its style and its reference. And you know, in terms of art, it goes through sort of the history of human art in a way, and its meaning. So we have cave painting, Americas and Oceania, African art, which is featured in the book, which is featured in the deck, sacred symbols. So there's a lot in it. And then the chapter that I wanted to talk about most is actually chapter 2, where she goes through the numbers. So you get an overall sense of the philosophy. Can you see all of it? Yeah. overall philosophy of the numbers. But then she goes through each number, and it's really good. You know, if you're kind of dipping your toe into the water of reading with numerology or tarot numerology in a deck, this is a pretty good start. It's as good as anything I've come across. And I don't have, for example, have that great numerology deck and book set that folks were looking at during March of the Pips. I did a lot of research. I shared that with folks. It's on my website. The one thing I would say I wish this book did a little bit more of was just go into kind of the overall meanings of the numbers a little more clearly. A lot of them do, you know what I mean? 1 and 2 do a nice job. 3 does a nice job. When you get into other numbers like 7 and 9 are the 2 numbers I feel like are kind of nebulous when I do research, and as a result I've identified little kernels that I've used, but 9 in particular is a number that when I do a reading of, I have to really think, particularly with pip decks, about like what's that 9 represent. So I think it could be a little bit more consistency in sort of what the numbers represent. Most of the numbers she talks about in here do have a represent, you know, she talks about it, but a couple of the numbers aren't quite as clear. So I really like that. And then it also goes into a section on color. Color is not, you know, I sort of respond to color at an emotional level. I don't go through color meaning necessarily, but if I wanted to, I'm sure there's a good primer in here. And then we get this sort of, you know, stuff about using tarot and spreads, and then it gets into the card meanings. And there's a fair amount on each card. You know, roughly a page, like both sides of a page, more or less. You can see some of the art. There's a big black and white picture of all the majors, and then the minors get a smaller picture. So I'm going to do a walkthrough so you can see I really, really love this art. And I'll read a couple of the descriptions. Let me zoom in. So you can see a little bit better. So this is the back. Because it's called Tarot of the Four Elements, you get this sort of elemental representation on the back of the card, which I think is nice. I have one complaint about this deck, and I will talk about it when I get there. But it's a small one. And other than that, I'm so surprised and delighted that, you know, this is sort of arrived, and how nice it is. So a couple of the cards have been renamed, but I'll walk through them. It's a pip-ish deck. When you see the minors, you'll sort of feel like it may look a little thothy, although because it's so elementally numerologically based, the definitions of the cards that they give in the book are again unique and pretty different. So here's the Fool, which I think is really beautiful. I mean, there's really not a card in this deck I don't like, so I'm going to throw that out there. So this is the Fool. The energy is just really beautiful. There's this sort of sense of being unformed, you know, not totally formed, and, you know, sort of see-through. I don't know, it's just beautiful. So there's that. Here's the Magician, and definitely a more shamanic magician than we get in certainly Rider-Waite-Smith. This is I looked at this card and I immediately thought, oh, it looks as interesting reversed as it does upright, but you've got this sort of Venus of Willendorf figure in the magician's body with these two lemniscats. Maybe this is one of the ones I'll read a description of for you. And if you don't want to hear it, you can just tap and skip ahead. So the book goes through the traditional image, and then it goes through the Tarot of the Four Elements image. So I won't read the traditional image section, but the Tarot of the Four Elements image. The magician, sitting on the face of the moon and raising his arms to greet the rainbow sun, mirrors the dynamic force of creativity and invention. With the balance of the sun and moon in evidence, this magician demonstrates the laws of alchemy and magic. The male energy of the sun jumps out at you, showing the path to action. However, Tucked deep within his center, the feminine resides. The outward motivation to perform in life is enhanced by the illuminated inner light of the goddess who lives within his core. This figure wears a true magician's cone-shaped cap, pointing to higher consciousness and containing a pentagonal star symbolizing constructive freedom. The lightning bolts emanating from his hands represent the power of manifestation passing through his being as a clear channel of divine will. The magician is dazzling and alive, offering art, music, play, and free expression to all. And then it goes on to the message and some keywords. I really like this description of the magician, and I obviously really love the art. I do associate the magician frequently with the act of making, with the act of creation, as sort of becoming a conduit. The Rider-Waite-Smith image, of course, has the magician raising his hand and the energy sort of flowing from above sort of through him into below. In this case, the image, the energy is kind of emanating out of him. He's manifesting. But it's the same act of creation and making, and I love the combination of the sun and the moon. I also think it's interesting to combine the masculine and feminine into one image in this card, because traditionally people frequently look at the magician and the high priestess as masculine and feminine counterparts of the same energy or the same coin. But I like the idea that within each of the cards is masculine and feminine energy, in the same way that within each card is light and shadow. So that's the magician. The priest, it's not the high priestess, it's just the priestess. But again, very feminine shapes. There's sort of a tip of the hat to the Rider-Waite columns, but something, you know, very unique and very different. Again, sort of reminiscent of the Venus of Willendorf. You know, I could take all day and read every description from the book. I'm not going to do that, but here's the Empress. Really beautiful. Love this sort of wheel. And, you know, stylized femininity here, the sort of vaginal opening. You know, not in sort of an offensive way, but in a, not that that would be offensive, not in a gratuitous way, not in sort of a way of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not in a way of becoming salacious, you know, it's sort of just this, you know, that birth quality, the pregnant quality of the Empress is really sort of clear, and I think that, you know, it's really just stunning. The Emperor, sort of these masculine shapes. There's a lot of these sort of lingam and yoni, or sort of phallic and vaginal shapes, which again can be sort of jarring, but not, I don't find in this particular deck. The priest it's not the Hierophant or the High Priest, it's the priest, and this is another one I wanted to read a little bit of because it's a very particular leader. So the Tower of the Four Elements image again, seated beneath what might be considered the Bodhi tree, the tree that Buddha sat under while attaining enlightenment, we see the priest, or a nature man, who is decorated with an emblem of power and wisdom. The design resembles the configuration of a labyrinth with an extended pathway that centers around the heart chakra. I won't read the whole thing, but it's a very different interpretation from the normal Hierophant image or the priest image. The elemental message from the deck, the alchemical process is taking place within the course of your body and soul. No longer limited to the four senses, you're seeding new patterns within your body, soul, and spirit. You are coming to know the fifth sense, the quintessence of life, the sweet surrender to the higher worlds, etc. So, you know, the interpretations are not necessarily traditional, but in that way, you know, I think I'm at a place right now where when I am buying decks, I'm buying decks that aren't traditional or that have something new to say or show, because you know, there's an edition that's come out recently that's a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and it's beautiful, and I ordered it and then I immediately canceled it because I just knew I wasn't going to use it. So where I am buying decks now, it's because there's a unique factor there. This is the Lovers, these sort of African masks, these really decorated masks. I love it. I love it for many reasons. Not the least of which is that it's not specifically gendered, and I think that's really beautiful. A little trite, I guess, with the hearts, going around it, but whatever. There's so I was going to talk about this a little bit later. Some cards, and one in particular has sort of a whimsical factor that does not excite me, but it's a minor thing. So this is the Chariot. Again, it's sort of really interesting because it's sort of very masculine shapes. Directed energy, these sort of eyes, a masked figure. It's not a literal chariot, but you do get an energy of sort of directed will. Justice, I think, is beautiful. I think this may be the most beautiful Justice card I've certainly ever seen. Loving this Hermit card. I mean, that's just so beautiful. The Hermit is one of my favorites, and gosh, this one is pretty. I'm going to read just a little of him. This nature being, resembling a magical and wise guide or teacher, is seen moving out of the inner realms toward the majestic plains of crystal snow and starry skies. The little light specks everywhere are starlit snowflakes that reveal the varied shapes and designs of the perfection and wisdom that this winter shaman may offer to the world. The beautiful orbs and stars in the sky are his lanterns that light the pathway onward. He does not face us, for he must move onward to distant horizons of the future. He is ready now to walk the red road of earth wisdom and ground his newly established insights into his walk of life. Staff in hand, he is supported as he seeks to establish a new foundation of wisdom in the world. Often the Hermit has sort of a passive, receptive energy. This Hermit has more of an active quality, and gosh, I could see making that my holiday card. Just so beautiful. Loving this wheel card. I probably will read this whole book, and I'm not a big reader of accompanying guidebooks, but this one seems to shed a lot on what's going on in the image. And I'm not a Wheel of Fortune fan, the game show or the tarot card, but this one I really like. There's just something about it that isn't, it's just, it calls out. Strength is 11, and we've got this sort of balanced figure. Again, very feminine imagery. Balancing on this sort of sea monster. It's really, this is such a summery deck too, even though it's got a seasonal sort of elemental quality. The Hanged Man is called the Shaman, but you still get that same energy. These eyes remind me a little bit of The Great Gatsby, the giant ad on the highway. There's this interesting sort of like phallic sword shape that goes through him that I think is really fascinating, but also these sort of animal quality. It's really beautiful. This is a beautiful death card. It's just sort of a joyous representation of it, but it just is like this deck, the art is so stunning to me. Cardstock wise, it's not the most beautiful cards. It's cardstock, you know what I mean? It's card. It's not beautiful cardstock, but it's cardstock, it's fine. Temperance, beautiful Temperance card. The way the hair sort of flows, and it's like the system, the star systems are sort of flowing through her body, and she's mixing these tiny little cups. The Devil, again, you can't get more masculine than that, boy. But I think it's a beautiful image. The Tower, there of a volcano. I think also because this deck exists out of a specific tradition, it gives the artist some license to mix, and to sort of show things. The Star card, ugh, come on. Beautiful. Look at the way these roots, this liquid is pouring out, but it looks like roots growing. The sky. It's just, this art is stunning. Here's the Moon. Again, these sort of Venus of Willendorf shapes I think are really beautiful. Hands. These trees look like hands, and hands are very important when you read the book in terms of the tens. This is not a 10 card. It's not related to 10, but the number 10 is associated with hands, and so you'll see some hand imagery in the deck. The Sun, for folks who don't like people on their sun cards or babies on their sun cards, this is beautiful. Bright sun. The Judgment card is called Realization, rather, and I'm fine with that. You know, I think Judgment's always been fine, but I like this. You know, it's always been a moment of awakening, of sort of seeing, of refreshing. So I think that makes sense. And again, you know, could you find a more beautiful piece of art there? And then the Universe. World cards are another one that have never been my favorite, and this one isn't my favorite, but it's great. I think it's stunning. So then we get into the minors, and as I said, they are fairly Pip-like. They have a Thothy energy to them, or a Tothy energy to them, but they're very unique, and they're not arbitrary symbols. I'll read a couple of the descriptions again. They're much shorter. So I'll start with this one. So this is because it's the Tower of the Four Elements. The suits are named by element, but the images are more or less wands, swords, cups, and pentacles. So I'll read. Yeah, let me just I'll just read this. One of Fire. The coloring that borders all of the fire cards is primarily orange with a mixture of white. This reminds us of the vibration and energy of fire itself. It helps to stimulate and awaken our vitality, strength, and passion for life. The One of Fire card represents dynamic power that can be wielded with authority, courage, and vision. The single bold vertical line dominating the center of the picture may signify a rod of initiation, a spiritual force that can awaken your higher consciousness and become a guiding light for the future. Notice what may be a central solar presence and concentric circles or spheres behind the black line. Similar to designs in mandalas, images used in meditation in Eastern cultures, these can be utilized to provide a sense of focus and increase your concentration. Every one card is a source, foundation point, or root power of the elemental quality. When this card comes up in a reading, make a new beginning somewhere in your life. Act with quiet confidence and be daring. Hesitation and caution will not be rewarded. Trying to analyze and figure out what's happening is inappropriate. Fire conveys assertion, action, willpower, and inspiration. The number one essence reminds you of individuality, unity, and a connection to divinity. It is of central importance to start building momentum with a plan or project. Do not let anyone or anything deter you from the envisioned goal. So you can see that the book is really going with the element and the number energy, which is, you know, it fits right in with sort of the path I've been taking since this winter. I'm not going to read all of them. Obviously, this could take forever, but I want to read the two just so you can see again how the book actually goes through the elemental progress and the number progression. So the Two of Fire is this. Here we see a blazing fire in a doorway or contained between two black vertical lines. The solar energy hidden behind the singular rod of initiation in the One of Fire card has burst into flames. However, this fiery presence in card 2 can be managed and controlled, as duality implies complementary forces that need to work in harmony. There is a short threshold in front of the fire, and if you imagine yourself standing here, you will feel the intense heat generated by the inferno just ahead of you. Like the spiritual pillar of fire that guided the ancient Hebrews wandering through the desert on their way to the promised land, this fire rises up toward the top of the card and can signify a divine essence illuminating your path in the world. As this card appears in a reading, realize that attempting to push forward on your own may be foolhardy. Include an associate, friend, or significant other in your plans. Choose someone who has fortitude and dynamism. You may need to rely on this individual in order to harness the principle of fire and make it work in your behalf. Remember that it is crucial to fan the flames of this fire with care. Acting rashly or without forethought is bound to boomerang against you. Two inspired people working in harmony is the way to proceed. So that's not an interpretation I would necessarily use for the Two of Wands, but what you do get is fire energy and the two energy, that duality, which is what two is all about. And the nice thing, too, about the book is that it gives you light and shadow for each element, for each number, and for each of the cards. And so you do get a sense of both the fire that's initiated in the ace, the sort of spark, coming into, you know, a fruition, a conflagration, so to speak. But it's also reined in, you know what I mean? So the duality is both allowing it to exist, but also keeping it controlled. So, you know, just great. So I think, you know, though I wish the numbers in the first part of the book were a little more clearly explained, I think what the author does for the artist in this case is take the image and talk about how the energy of the element combined with the number works in terms of the image. And the images, again, are really stunning. So I won't read more. I'll just go through. So this is the 3 of fire. The 4. And you can see that they look very pip-like, but they're not arrangements of suits, and they're not arbitrary. You know, so there is an image, there is an element to it. Large borders, but that border seems to be part of the overall experience of the card. Here's the 6. That was the 5. Here's the 6. The 7 talks about the chakras here, and in the book it talks about sort of maybe you need to look at realigning your chakra energy. There may be a chakra that's out of balance, say, or you know, something that's blocked. The 8, you get a sense of organization, of things working together, working, you know, as they should. There's almost like a machine-like quality to this, which the number 8 sort of has in terms of its work ethic. Here's the 9. In the book, she talks about how the fire turns into these lotus flowers. Again, hand imagery for the 10. And then the courts are a pretty standard issue. They're page, knight, queen, again the chakras, and king. You know, as a Leo, I'm sort of digging this card because it feels like a lion made of fire. So I kind of like that. So that's the suit of fire. The suit of earth. This is just how they were stacked, and it does come in 2 halves when you open the deck, but it doesn't feel like 2 separate halves, which is nice. This is the ace of earth, the 2 of earth, the 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, the 7s really have this chakra energy tied into them, which is nice because the 7s can be kind of nebulous, sort of wishy-washy or sort of unclear when you're learning that tarot numerology, and sort of the visual cue of having those chakras, I think, is really helpful. This is a deck I can see working with if you're sort of feeling like you want to transition away from the Rider-Waite-Smith system, but you're not ready to go like full-on pips. In particular, because there is a real strong energy, and the book's descriptions of what the cards are showing will help kind of make sense of the numerology and the element combining. It's the 9 and the 10, the page, the knight. I like this knight. Excuse me. The queen. And the king. This reminds me of a story from my childhood. I can't remember what, but the sort of king is the mountains and the trees. Love that. So this is the suit that makes me a little sort of like, because the coloring is very sort of like newborn baby's room. But despite that, it's a beautiful suit. And it's airy, you know, and this is the suit of air, and there's an airy quality to these colors. They're very pastel, they're pink and blue. The cloud designs on the borders are just a little cute, you know, and for a suit that I don't associate the suit of swords with any more difficulty than any other suits, because I believe all of them have light and shadow. This one has a whimsy to it that I'm not, you know, if it were up to me, I would make this a little more severe, a little sharper, but still beautiful. So that was the 2. Here's the 3, 4, the 5, the 6, the 7, the 8, the 9, and I like this 9. I like that you get a sort of sharp energy from it, but it's not, you know, it's not the Rider-Waite image we're used to. The 10, and then we get the page, the knight, the queen, the king, and then the final suit is water. So here's the ace, and then the 2, and you can see very clearly these are cups. Here's the 3, the 4, the 5, 6, 7. You do get a little Rider-Waite energy here, sort of, with the dreaming quality of this one. 8, 9, 10, and then we have the Queen, sort of mermaid energy. Knight. Oh wait, that was the page. Yeah, that was the page. Knight, Queen, and there's the King. And that's the deck. So, whoops. So I haven't shuffled this yet. So there's something I wanted to show. One of the cards, one of the minors reminded me also of the Rider-Waite. It was the 4. Maybe I was wrong. Yeah, I could have been thinking of something else. I can't find it. So I'm going to shuffle this and we'll just sort of do like a sample reading to see how it feels. Again, the cardstock isn't like super duper, but it's good. You know, it's cardstock. It's not laminated, which actually from a shuffling standpoint is both good and bad. Because they don't stick together and they shuffle pretty well, but of course you have to sort of take more care, making sure that you don't, you know, get them wet or, whoops, that you don't bend them. I go back and forth with reversals. I'm actually going to do a video about using reversals with pip decks, Marseille decks in particular, which I have started doing again. This back is not reversible, but that never really bugs me. I'm not going to do reversals now, just so you can see the images, but... P.S. In terms of, you know, I don't do deck interview spreads, but one thing I do like is Kelly from The Truth and Story has a video about kind of going through the deck and doing a new deck and just doing these 3-card pulls and saying, oh, it's this, you know what I mean? And just sort of like looking at the combination. And I think that's brilliant. It's also good practice. So it shuffles nicely. I'm just going to pull 3 cards. So we've got the 4 of, the 9 of fire, the 1 of water, the ace of water, and the queen of fire. Can you see that? Like, I'll zoom out. So working numerologically, 4 is about stability, and sort of the shadow of that is conservatism. 1 is, of course, the ace, so it's the spark, the ignition point, the seed of the energy of the suit. And then the court cards, I still sort of use a developmental process. So the queens are kind of the mature embodiment of their own suit. So the combination of this is interesting. The other thing, because this is so elementally focused, it's so easy to see which suit you're looking at, and the sort of entrapment of water and fire right out of the gate makes me think about elemental dignities, which I would probably definitely use with this deck, and makes me go, you know, there's like this new feeling, there's this new emotional state that's wanting to break through, but there's some fire, there's some passions that are untamed on either side that are kind of putting out that that are not putting out the water. You don't put out water. It's making it into steam. So it's sort of that's what I'm looking for. It's evaporating the water. So we're so, I would say, like if I were looking at this for a relationship reading, say, I would say we're so focused on what we believe is the right thing to do in our career and, you know, our sort of art. We're so married to the foundation we've built and to the plan we've made, and to sort of becoming the full measure, the full embodiment, the famous, you know, exemplar of the work that we do, we're actually holding ourselves back from emotional breakthrough that wants to break through but can't, because all of the heat we're generating trying to force ourselves into the state and trying to cling to these patterns we've developed, is kind of evaporating an emotional breakthrough that we could go through. And that's, that's sort of based on the numerology of 4, stability and conservatism. The queen, the shadow side of that embodiment, the sort of mature embodiment of fire, is ego. And then the ace of water sort of breaking through. And so, like, if you've seen, by the way, Kelly from the Truth and Stories videos, she would, like, now pull 3 more and explore that combination. So we can, and since the Hermit came out, let's do that. So here, like, a very different feeling energy-wise. It's all very earthy. So we've got the 2 of Earth, the 7 of Earth, and the Hermit in the middle. And so we have life starting to create boundaries for us, that are forcing us to kind of go inside. 7 to me is a very, like, internal examination. It's sort of a going inside, a reflection on what we've gone so far in the journey. To me, the Earth suit, the pentacles or coins or whatever they are, is sort of about life. It's about daily life. It's about our jobs, not necessarily our careers. So we have this sense of, like, these boundaries in our lives starting to grow, the duality, the sort of bounding box of suddenly it's not just like the seed, these trees here are sort of creating a box, and we're kind of going internal to see how we feel about that. But in doing that, we find a really wise leader who can guide us, and he's walking to these boundaries, right? So we go inside and we find this leader, we find this wisdom within ourselves who's going to lean in to those boundaries and say, okay, life has started to grow around me in this way. What am I going to find in there? He's not walking away from it, he's walking towards it. So if I go deep into this exploration of these boundaries in my life, I'm going to find something there that's really important. I'm going to find within this duality, within this pull between sort of freedom and life kind of growing around me, I'm going to find something really important there. I don't know what, because the face is turned away from us, so he's sort of looking towards it, but looking, we don't see how he's reacting. We don't know what we're going to find there, but we know, because it's the Hermit and he's wise, that what we're going to find there is important. So the turning in is a good thing, and will help us sort of embrace this. So, you can keep going on, but I really, really, really love this deck. I think it's beautiful. I think the book is really good. I'm super excited to have it. This is an impulse buy that I'm definitely happy I impulse bought. I hope you enjoyed this. I know this was long as usual, but also I haven't been making videos in a while, so I'm just happy to be back doing that. Be well, take care. I'll talk to you soon.